extremely sincere, honest, authentic, and in a very emotionally intense way. So this book was a very, very excruciating journey for me, writing it from beginning to end. And also I had to make certain sacrifices in a way because, okay, maybe they were not my sacrifices to make, but I really, really talk about my parents in a very revealing way. And that was actually very difficult for me. When I was writing this at the same time, I also knew that I would be causing a lot of problems at home. You know, a lot of my relatives, a lot of my parents, my father's kind of stopped talking to me. Partly because of my writing, partly because I'm gay. But I felt I had to do it. I felt that I had to do this for myself. As a writer, as an artist, I had to do this. I felt that if I don't do it, I feel like I'm missing this huge chunk of my soul. You know, that people think it's such a small thing. You know, self-expression. Everyone can express themselves, but I've always felt that, you know, in Singapore at least, I've been unable to express myself until this point. And this book was a way for me to finally say, this is me, you know. And hence, I wanted to write this book in a way that was a narrative. And it was a narrative about me growing up with my family, but also a narrative about forgiveness, about forgiving the past, about forgiving the people, forgiving myself who have wronged me, and trying to find love in a very, very sometimes bleak circumstance. So the first poem of which I'm talking about today, really, is End Song. And End Song is really, when I was thinking about all these things that I've just mentioned, all these things were all in my head, all jostling for attention. All these aspects of Singapore, of myself, of my past, of my mother, my father, and all the things I was thinking about all these things, then this first poem came to me. Well, you can see the drafts here. One early or late night, and at that time I think I didn't have a notebook next to my bed, which I should have. So what I did was, you know, I took out my phone, which I'm still kind of using like that, this kind of phone, and I was like texting myself in the middle of the night, like, okay. Then in the morning, I'll write these drafts down. So when I finally got the drafts from my SMS on paper, I was putting it down. I think I made a very conscious decision to well, I basically made a choice by saying that this is going to be the first poem of my book. I'm going to make this the tone, the overarching theme, you know, the consistent concern of the entire book. And I wanted it to start with this poem so that when I finally end the poem, it would be a new take on the themes that are being spoken about here. So this poem, which I first called Requiem because it was late at night, I didn't want to think about it. I call it Requiem or Prologue because I wanted to eventually have an epilogue in which, when I talk about death in the first instance, right, talk about death and the self and who I am as a human being, I wanted the last poem, ideally, because I feel that when you write poetry, poetry should change you as a writer. Poetry should make you a better person, should make you more enlightened, right? From the first poem to the last poem, I wanted there to be this journey in which the poet, i.e. me, but also a kind of universal self, moves away from a very, very dark place of pain and morbidity and depression and loneliness. I think loneliness is very crucial here. Move away from loneliness all the way to a final point where you can accept that life is impermanent. It's a little Buddhistic. I never thought about it then. I wasn't Buddhist, I was a Roman Catholic, but I'm lapsed still. I didn't think about it at that point of time, but I was thinking a lot about how, as a human being, I would move on from here to here. And I didn't know what this last poem was going to be, but I knew what I wanted to look like at this point, you know, as a poet, as a human being. I wanted a self that was able to forgive, that was no longer angry, no longer alone, no longer scared of death, no longer scared of the afterlife, no longer scared of what will happen after, you know, no longer scared of how people look at me as a human being, as a writer, and capable of love, deep, real, authentic love. So poetry was kind of like my therapy session, right? And I felt that that is, to me, and I still talk about this when I give poetry workshops. When you are writing a poem, and I suspect I'm probably one of the few people in Singapore to say this, but when you're writing anything, whether it's a fiction, a short piece of fiction, or a poem, what you're writing has to change you in some way. The poem is a teacher. The poem is instructive. The poem is a guide, a spiritual guide that will take you from wherever you are and show you something new about your own experiences that you never knew before. And you just have this aha moment. If you don't have that aha moment, when the poetry doesn't give you that revelation, for me the poetry has failed. And for me, this whole book was about this need to succeed. You know, I wanted this whole book, not just one poem, the whole narrative arc of this book, all the poems, to succeed in a way that it will make me a better, a more enlightened, a happier, a less lonely human being. It's a very, very tall order. It's a very tall order as a writer. But I felt that I needed to do it because I was tired of writing, you know, poems that just, you know, one-off poems that were all about, you know, I'm sad, I'm happy, my mother did this, my father did this, life sucks. You know, I wanted it to be more than that. I wanted it to redeem the moment, you know. I wanted redemption, you know. That's part of my Catholic upbringing, I think, that I'm trying to exercise every day. Okay, so then that early morning when I woke up and I wrote this poem, I had all this in mind, you know. So I thought, okay, Requiem. Then I thought, no, I've used Requiem in a poem before in my earlier books. I didn't want it anymore. So I thought Prologue. So this was the draft one. Right. So I'll just read the draft one very quickly. So I'm dead after singing as a child, awake as an adult, to sing again a different song, although with an irony, both beautiful and sad. I hope to sing again the song, uncoiling like smoke from the afterlife, piercing the present like an echo, the ghost of an aria in the living air.